Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Belfast Met's latest webinar in our Supporting Innovation series. Today, we're going to explore the world of Internet of Things. So we do have Naughton, who is a lecturer in the college and delivers on a range of innovation programs and works in the emerging technology field around IoT, blockchain and machine learning. So Martin's going to take us through what's been happening recently within IoT and looking at a few sectors and use cases. And we're also joined today by Bobby from McFarland Consulting, who is actually going to take us through what the company he works for has been up to in that space as well. So really showing you what our local SME and what they're doing and how they're utilizing the technology. So as I said, at the top, we're going to keep this short and sweet, so under an hour. And thank you to Connected, who have funded this webinar series. So Connected is funded by Department for the Economy and really is an enabler for the likes of the college and university network to collaborate and work together, but also disseminate and share knowledge with the local business community in Northern Ireland. So thank you to Connected for facilitating and funding the webinar series for us. In terms of myself, my name is David Phelan. I work for Belfast Met College as Business Development Executive within the Centre for Economic Development and Social Inclusion team. So essentially, I help connect the dots between the local business sector and some of our innovation skills and support programs available within the college, and I'll touch on those later on at the end of the webinar. In the meantime, if you do have any questions as we move through the webinar, please feel free to use the chat function. So as Martin and Bobby are presenting and something springs to mind, please drop it into the chat and I'll collect some of those questions at the end and put those to Martin and Bobby to help everyone be a bit more informed. But without further ado, I'll pass you over to Martin Naughton to introduce the webinar.
Cool, thanks, David. I just had to run and get my charger there for my laptop there. So cool, yeah. So my name is Martin Naughton. I'm part of the lecturers in the Belfast Met around the emerging tech. And one of the things I've been doing over the last few years privately as well is IoT. So I've kind of had a good bit of experience working with Intel, Ericsson, Bombardier as well, and they're kind of Internet of Things and kind of sensor-based applications there. So as well, like when I was working for Intel saw this as the next big boom about 7 years ago, and it's starting to become, the boom's happening at the moment, so a lot of people are taking advantage, especially with the whole COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of people are kind of working remotely, and IoT kind of lends itself to that, especially if you're gathering data. So we'll kind of talk about a few things. So what I want to kind of talk about is kind of three sections I thought people could resonate with, is kind of like smart factories, smart agriculture, and smart buildings. So we all kind of know that. Some of the technology we're going to talk about is readily available. Like IoT isn't the future technology that will be developed. The solutions are already here. The sensors are already here. As you can see, even on your phone, how many sensors you have probably have 6 or 7 sensors in the phone that gather light, sound, can do temperature, pressure. So they're in all our kind of devices. So they're all readily available to kind of collect data for us. So the basic thing is, sorry, just going to use this system. Yeah, so we're kind of just as basic level, just to make sure everybody understands what is Internet of Things. Internet of Things is really connecting objects to the internet there. Like I just said, my phone is an IoT device. A TV these days, like a smart TV, is an IoT device. What it's doing is sending up data about yourself and your phone, and you kind of exchange that with the cloud. So we have a lot of, like, you have Fitbits as well, so they can kind of connect your phone, then transmit that information to the cloud. You can do data analytics on that. then to kind of find out your fitness and your overall trends of fitness. And this kind of stuff we couldn't do before. And it's coming, IoT is coming very consumer-based solutions as well. That everybody wants to collect data. They want to see dashboards about information. And again, with this information, we can make better decisions. That's what it comes down to, making better decisions based on data that we can collect over time and start to notice trends as well. So yeah, just IoTs, get an object, connect to the internet. It's an IoT, very, very simple there with it. So you can have a device connected to the internet, that's fine. If it doesn't have any sensors on it, it's not that useful to you. So this is the kind of, just a bunch of different sensors you can have currently available on the market as well. These are kind of old sensors, and they're just, all you're doing now is connecting to the cloud. So we got some of them here, like temperature sensor is a classic one there. There's a lot of range of temperature sensors out there, which you can capture data from your buildings outside in certain conditions as well, and you can capture them in remote areas as well. You don't have to have anybody go out to a certain site to collect data. You can just have a sensor there sitting there all the time collecting that. There, a big one now as well, which we'll go over with the smart buildings, is the kind of position and the presence and the proximity kind of sensors. So just being able to tell if someone's in the room, because if someone's in the room, say in work, obviously there's got to be heat on, there's going to be light on. That's kind of like energy usage. That's cost. If someone's in a room, it's cost. But if someone's not in the room and those costs are being used at that time, then it's kind of a waste of resources then. So again, can we use IoT to kind of like be a bit smarter there and kind of automate a lot of that stuff where we can kind of unlock value then, like so. So you've got those kind of presence sensors. Leak and level sensors, that's another one there that's very popular. You'd have those in kind of like oil tanks. So I know one company in Northern Ireland that looks after 40,000 oil tanks across the whole UK. And what they do, they have sensors in them, and when it goes below a certain level, it automatically emails an order then to an oil company to come fill it up. So again, it's all automated. There's no human interaction. They're able to get cheaper prices then based on like all this automation then. And it's so also the oil companies then can see this data, and they can predict then when they need to have a certain amount of oil and when the oil is going to be required in these tanks. So it's quite good like there. And humidity and moisture sensors, that's a big thing, especially in houses or buildings as well, just to kind of know that those levels as well, any kind of damage that it's maybe doing to the building as well. So you can see all those, there's loads of different sensors, and just not here, even like flow sensors. I remember working at Intel, and to unlock value, the insurance companies would say, if you were able to put a flow sensor in there, and it would automatically, if there was a leak detection sensor in the house and it detected a leak and it shut off the taps or shut off the taps outside the house so no water could get into the house, they would actually reduce your insurance quote. So you're unlocking value there because you're creating more efficiencies within the process as well. So that was one big one, the insurance companies. If you reduce risk of damage by using IoT, they'll give you a cheaper quote. Then that was kind of the future at that time, but the future is now back. So what else are we kind of doing with the IoT? So what IoT is doing is gathering data so we can kind of store it in the cloud. You can see the big companies now like Google and Amazon and Facebook, they're just gathering so much data because they can make better decisions, but also can target better advertising. That's their big thing about it, but also creating efficiencies as well. But that's what we want to create, use IoT for, is kind of data-driven decisions. We collect enough data, we can make the best decision. If you think about it, like in war, the first thing they try and do is they're trying to get enough intel so they can have use their army more effectively. That's what we kind of do in everyday work as well. There, we're kind of gathering data ourselves, maybe not through sensors, but what we see through our eyes there, and we're making better decisions, data-driven decisions based on that. So that's what it's about. It's kind of like, so without the whole data kind of analytics, IoT is only metrics. It's only you've got a temperature available. What does that tell you about a certain site? But it's that kind of data-driven decision where you kind of use it with other data, like, you know, humidity or presence detection, that it kind of really unlocks the value out of it. But making better data-driven decisions, it's what it's IoT is all about. Like, so one thing as well, like with IoT, is benefits of IoT fall into kind of two areas, like improving operational efficiencies, and then creating connected products and new services. So what we kind of want to go through this as well is just improving operational efficiencies, because there's a lot to IoT. So I just want to kind of focus on one of the areas there. So there's kind of two there. So what we'll kind of have a look at is just, cool. So I just wanted to kind of go over smart factories here, and I just found this there last night. This is kind of a linen factory there in Belfast. So I got these from the archives. And what I'm just showing here is just back in the day how efficient the factories were. They were all about churning out as much linen as possible. And it's funny one as well, Belfast was called one time Linenopolis, meaning that it was the capital of the linen trade within the UK, especially around the 1800s there, where there was a cotton famine. So it's just showing like Belfast is, and the rest of Northern Ireland is kind of very process and factory driven. And back in the day there, they would try and use the machinery to improve processes and improve delivery of products at a cheaper cost. So if they could go cheaper, they could, if they could sell it for cheaper, then more people would buy from them, which leads to them unlocking value within the supply chain as well. So this is what kind of IoT does. But we're kind of like with the factory, we can only do so much without looking at new ways of doing it, doing our products. But we can also unlock like value within the factory to by gathering sensor data, you know, to unlock that. So we'll have a look at a smart. Sorry, I keep pressing enter. Yeah, so what we can have here is just look at a really simple smart factory there. Stuff we could definitely do today. It's not that this is in the future. This is available today. So if we kind of look at the top there, there's the whole wearables within the factory. I think as the years go on, to do with compliance, their factories will have more wearables on their employees. So you have these wearables now, like these hard hats on construction sites, and they can tell you if someone's fallen over or if someone's got hit in the head by an object. And those kind of sensors can send back to headquarters that there's some kind of issue there. There's also wristbands you can have on site in case you get electrocuted. It will show you kind of vital signs as well. So yeah, so that's becoming more and more thing. But it's also to do with health and safety, but also compliance, and also see how many people that are in the area. And as well, I think with COVID as well, we'll have a lot more of that, knowing where people are in a building to kind of keep that social distancing for the next while anyway. So I'll go through that with the smart buildings in a minute. So, so as well, other information we can collect off in the middle there, we can collect off the supply chain, is to know how full, like you can have sensors to know how full a factory floor is, how much under capacity it is or over capacity. And that's kind of sensor information you can feed back to a computer system that can kind of then automate when you should be doing your next order or when you should be bringing in resources. So that's where even like Coca-Cola down in Lisburn, they're looking into like how can they know by putting in sensors how much stock they have in a certain area, and then when the orders should come in for the next part of stock, or when are they selling more of their products, when is it going out, when they should have their supply chain. So it's just about sensor kind of information there. The more they can gather, the more they can do the machine analytics, like you see on the left-hand side there, because that's where we're leading to. Like our processes can only go so far, but can we kind of improve the process itself by looking for efficiencies and unlocking value, like so. And that's the kind of thing there. So just on the smart factories, just a small thing on the smart factories there. Smart buildings, probably more where my expertise lie there. Done a range of projects on the kind of smart buildings around the island. So this is actually E3, Belfast Met up on the Springfield Road there. So I just kind of took maybe 5 sensors they could put into the building and what value we could unlock out of that, out of those sensors as well, and what kind of what we could see happening in the future. Like so say if we take room occupancy is a classic one there. E3 is probably very empty at the moment. I haven't been up there myself, and with whole COVID and everybody working from home. But are they running the building at the same cost as it would if there was 100 people there, or if there's 1,000 people there? Could we have a system that automatically turns off, as you can see on the left-hand side, temperature around the building based on occupancy, but also just not on that, based on trends of occupancy? Because what you can do, predict there, if a certain building area is used on Tuesdays, there's a trend, so the temperature should go up. So what we're doing here is we're unlocking value because we're only turning on things when we need them. So you can see there, temperature and energy, they're kind of a cost within running a building. Can we reduce that cost? Because, you know, say if there's 100 people in there, it's the same cost if there's 1,000 people in there, even though the 100 people take up less room within the building. And looking at like Vodafone report, especially with COVID now. So Vodafone did a report last year that they've seen for businesses especially that building costs are the second highest costs for a business there. So again, if you can unlock value and unlock efficiencies in there, that's profit then that can go to your company, or money that you can put into other research funds as well. So if we have just the room occupancy, but the room occupancy can do a lot more, because it's like we have the door sensor there and the room occupancy. The door sensor, I was actually talking to a restaurant chain, and they were trying to look at efficiencies they could bring into their restaurants. And one thing is they had the same number of staff on if there was 100 people in the restaurant, or if there was 5 customers. But what you can get now is these little cameras you can put just before the door, and what it does is it just scans how many people are leaving and going. So like my phone can do this as well, just an app, you can do it. Again, this whole machine vision is just standard now, and all the camera does is send up a number. So for GDPR purposes, it can't send it away from the camera there. So all the camera is doing is sending up a number of how many people are currently coming in and out of the building as well. So again, if there's 5 people that came into the building, do we turn on the heat for the whole building, or do we use the lights on for the building? No, we can automate that, because that door, the information coming from the door sensor could feed into a system that automatically turns off parts of the building or zones in the building. So also as well within the canteen and the Belfast Met, they don't know actually if there's 100 people or 1,000 people in the building. Do they change their whole work plan there based on the number that's coming in or out? So that's a big thing for them. Could they unlock efficiencies within their supply chain, going, actually, there's 1,000 people in the building, we actually need to cook more food? I know one way they told me before when I was there, I was like, how do they say they see them come in the door, but if somebody's not watching from the restaurant watching the door, 100 people could come in and go into a conference room and they wouldn't know what was happening as well. But if they had some kind of sensor that they could hook into there that's managing the door, they could see how many's in the building, and then figure out how much food they kind of need then to cook. Like, so that's another thing. So kind of occupancy and door kind of really drive that whole building, because the building is there to do work, and how much does it cost to put someone there to work? So that's about reducing costs. So again, bins as well. There was a company I was just in 2 years ago. I was in London there. I was at a kind of just an evening. They were just talking about IoT. And one company was talking about, Sainsbury's was talking to them that they, and this is kind of driven by the customer, is Sainsbury's is saying they didn't want to pay for bins that were half full and collected because they paid for bins to for a full bin there. So and they were saying they would give the better tender to somebody if they could like be preemptive, but also only come when the bin was full. And again, so that's the consumer is driving that, saying you should reduce costs and reduce those inefficiencies in the bin collection process. So that's, I think, going to be a big thing as well going forward. Like, so yeah, so there's that kind of thing there. So as well, well, I'll go into a minute there with the Vodafone. So yeah, so you can see here, just in the Belfast Met, only with a few sensors there could actually drive a lot of value and unlock value within the building, reducing costs, because a building seems to have finite costs these days, where it doesn't matter how many people are in the building, but really the building is like a living organism. It kind of like, there's people that come in, a lot of people come in one day, and then another day there could be less people. So again, the usage of that building in terms of cost should go up and down with it as well. And that's even within the cloud. The cloud these days, you know, like Google and Amazon and Facebook, they don't run servers completely all the time if they're not needed. They kind of reduce their resources if they need them and then increase them. So it's about having that elasticity as well, like, which reduces costs there. So that's the kind of smart building. But there's kind of Vodafone done a lot of reports on this as well. And this is their kind of London office there, their London HQ. And they've put a lot of IoT sensors in there at the moment. And I don't know if you can see there that there's a picture within the picture there. What that is, there's a little green little LED there. And what that's saying is this desk is now free, but the other desk in the far bit is occupied. So what they're thinking in the future is, especially after COVID, is they won't need this full occupied office. Like, people will come and go as they please, but you know, how can they find a free desk? Because hot desking is a big thing, even in a company, Ericsson I was in before, you had dedicated desks and that's where you sat every day. But then they changed it to hot desking, that you picked a desk when you came in there. So that's where Vodafone sees it as well going, is where's the efficiency they can drive now. And I think that's where even companies I'm talking to at the moment, they're, even after COVID, they think they'll probably go down to maybe 3 days a week in the office and 2 days a week work from home. And again, do they need these big offices then? Can they put something in their process to kind of extract that data out, which makes which saves them costs as well? Do you know, if they, like, even a company across from us here, actually half their office's capacity when COVID hit then. So do they need everybody in? But they need a system to kind of make sure it's automated, that not everybody comes in every day, or there is a plan for it as well. So yeah, so again, what they're saying here as well, Vodafone, they think within the year 2023, especially with COVID happening as well, is there'll be about $1.1 trillion spent on IoT, and it's only going to get bigger. So Vodafone's really getting into this market here to kind of provide these kind of solutions as well. Now, one thing they said in the report, and I do see it in a lot of companies, again, if they want to unlock value with IoT, is the cost of implementation. So you've got to weigh up the cost of how much is going to install this kind of IoT solution to how much you're going to get in a return on investment over the next, say, 5 years there. So that was one barrier to kind of businesses adopting it, while kind of maintenance and integrating that kind of system in with legacy systems. Maybe you have an old legacy system for heating your building. How does it integrate there? So that was two of the barriers that I kind of identified there for businesses there. So, but you can see here, like, even Vodafone can have a lot of proximity sensors and occupancy sensors available to kind of know how to efficiently run. But also the plus thing is automatically run this building for them, like so. Press an enter. Cool. And I just want to show you this one. This is one you'll probably see in a lot of buildings now. And I did see it in one of our customers we went to see there. Just before Christmas, this camera was there and you couldn't go into the building until you were scanned there. So it just gave you, passed. You're allowed to walk into the rest of the building. It opened up the turnstiles with you now if you failed. So what this is really doing is seeing if you have a temperature and maybe which then could be actually COVID there. So they just want to see if they're compliant there. So I think a lot of companies will have these kind of sensors, camera sensors as you're going in to kind of know that they're compliant as well. And I think another, within some companies as well, what they're doing is you have to be desk apart. So I think as well, they'll be putting sensors on the desk to make sure people are not occupying them as well. Because again, they want to adhere to the compliance of social distancing as well. So that's one thing. So that's kind of on the smart buildings there as well. And so we've just gone over the smart factories a bit and then smart buildings a bit more, because I think a lot more people will see unlocking value, especially businesses using IoT to reduce their costs of their buildings. They're running their buildings and also maybe reducing the size. But also another one, I think farmers are very entrepreneurial and they're all about costs. Like every day there's something that costs them money, they see it. And usually they're kind of sole traders there. So a smart factory is the kind of the way of the future, because everybody's looking for cheaper produce, quicker to market, longer shelf life. So that means the farmers have to be smarter, quicker, reduce their costs. So again, this technology, like I did on the smart building, that technology I've been talking about is readily available at the moment. Stuff I'm talking about, the smart farm, is readily available there. You can get that. And I'll even talk about some Irish companies there. So there's one on the right-hand side there, top right-hand side under the sun there, is a smart collar. So what that does, it's a collar that's around the cow. And what it does, it just monitors the GPS location of the cow. So you know where the cow is in the field there. So you can have a herd of cows and you know where they are individually. But also, again, it can, and I got to talk about a sensor in a minute, it can also monitor other things about them. If they're sick, if they have a limp, if they've walked enough that day. I think as well, if a cow's pregnant, there's a certain walking style or a certain amount of step distance it will go, so they can analyze that. So there's certain trends they can see within cows then, so that's a sensor. Again, I know my uncle and my dad, they're kind of more hobbyist farmers. The first thing they'll always talk to each other about is what field the cows are in, but also what that helps them to know is to what field they should be putting them in as well. So again, automating with those kind of smart collars, you can automate the gates opening and closing. So making smarter decisions again by knowing more data. So you can, as soon as they kind of go open one gate that the cows are in the field and open the other one, the cows just kind of move to the other field. Again, automating that process, making you more efficient, unlocking value and stuff. Again, if they didn't have to do that over time, they can go off and do higher valued tasks as well. So think about that. And also with the smart collar, the cheapest is like, when you're on your car and your car is might have a small issue. It's not a big issue. The car's still running, but the longer you leave it, the more the issue becomes bigger, but also the cost of fixing it might become larger. And again, if you can preempt a cow maybe is slightly sick, can you intervene earlier? And maybe give it some, let the vet know, so then it's not, at bigger risk. So what we call that in the kind of IoT world is preemptive maintenance, really. It is known as fixing the problem before it ever happens, becomes bigger. So that's just on smart collars there. Drones, you can get drones everywhere now that can fly over fields, and farmers are using drones now to even herd their sheep, I've seen before. But also what drones can kind of do is they can have sensors on them to see where sheep are, how the land is laid and how the land is performing as well. So you can kind of get that over time. Again, it's about, with this kind of data and any type of data, it's about getting data over time and noticing the trends. You've got the Cloud storage as well. So what we're doing is collecting data about the crops and stuff, to know how they're performing. So you can kind of prioritize like how much fertilizer you have to give them, how much water you might have to give them. I think as well with climate change coming along, water is going to be a bigger thing there, and it's going to become more scarce. So even I'll talk about it in a minute, how much water you have to give a plant. Just drenching it with water, if the water costs you money, are you overspending on costs? In New Zealand, they actually know to the millimeter how much water they've given the grass before there. So they're much more efficient there. So again, it's about automating, and you've got the self-driving vehicles. I think that as the years go on, the tractors will be more self-driven. They'll spread the fertilizer on the field as it's going along. And then you've got the smart crop sensors as well. You've got the smart crop sensors as well. So that's a big thing as well. Even at home gardening, people are now putting in sensors into their gardens just to know, what how the crops are doing. Is there nutrients in the soil? Is the soil waterlogged? Is there enough moisture in the soil as well? So that's a big thing. And again, with all this kind of thing, it's kind of precision agricultural solutions. You're trying to be precise as much, spend the littlest amount possible to get the best output. So that's where kind of the smart farm kind of comes in with that. So, and again, that's how you can unlock value, by finding those things where you overspend money on, and then kind of using data to kind of make them more efficient as well. So yeah, so just that this is an Irish company as well, so you can buy this kit and put it around the cow's neck there to kind of monitor where your cows are, how they're doing, how their health is. So it can kind of do a lot there for the farmer, because the more data the farmer has, if he has a flock or herd, of 100 cows, he can't keep an eye on all of them. If he can use some data, collect that data, the system to kind of figure out, actually this cow has an issue, you should maybe go check it out then. So again, that's even an Irish company there that's doing that at the moment. But we can actually have a look at another thing. Really, it's more the connected cow here, and then you can do this with any type of thing on the smart farm. You can have the connected plant, the connected potato, the connected chicken shed. There's all this stuff, but this is what one test case study or test case I was just looking at. Sorry. So you have, as well, like, with the necklace around the cow there, it's really a Fitbit there for cows, because you're trying to optimize the cow's health, so it can produce more milk or larger meat there. So that's what you're trying to look into. So yeah. You can see on the actual back of it as well, there's the tail movement. So there's an Irish company called Mucou. So what it is, I never knew this. My friend actually thought of this. He's not part of Mucou, but he had actually had this idea in college, because his dad would go out, and if the cow was going to give birth, it took a while to go into labor. But if it was at night, his dad used to have to come out every half an hour to make sure if the cow gave birth that the calf was okay. So he could be up all night just constantly checking, and which affects his mood and probably productivity the next day there. So what you can do is you can put a sensor on the tail, and all you do is get a text message then when the calf is born. Again, you're being more efficient. You can do this for multiple cows. You don't have to keep checking them. You're unlocking value again with it. And again, you can do acid monitors there, just to make sure the cow's acid level in the stomach is okay, that it's not too acidic as well. So yeah, so there's that there. So this is another one as well. Just want to show you how you're unlocking efficiencies. This is a company done by a company in Belfast there. They're called 65 Technologies. And what they do is when you're spreading any fertilizer or slurry, that you're exact. you're not like, so you go up a field and then you come down a field, and you don't want to do that overlay, because the overlay actually costs money. If you're like spreading fertilizer or slurry over the same bit of area, even if it's like half a foot, that's half a foot over like maybe a few miles of what they're spreading on, and it's costing them a lot of money. And what they want to do is make it the least amount possible. And what they do is they put this system into their tractor, and the driver just drives to that. Again, this will probably be automated in the future as well. Like, so that's the other thing. Cool. I'm just past my time here. But again, conclusion is like, technology is readily available. It's not, this is the future. You can get temperature sensors, occupancy sensors in the most retail stores. You can kind of hook them up to a system, and it's what you want to do with them. Every company and every person wants to do something different with the data. And again, examine the costs. That's the biggest thing I find, is people are not examining the cost to calculate the return on investment. Is like, if they put in any of these systems, how long and how much will they save in their investment as well? And again, probably starting off with this, I would find the largest inefficiencies in your process to unlock value. That's where you're going to get the most return on investment as well. So, yeah, that's it from me then. Sorry about that. I went over time.
No worries. Thanks very much, Martin. Hopefully everyone's a bit more informed in terms of what IoT stands for, some really interesting use cases in farming and agriculture. So it really does bring it to life. So thank you, Martin. Next up, we have Bobby Weir. So Bobby is a software engineer at McFarland Consulting, and he was actually part of a knowledge transfer partnership project between Belfast Met College and the company, really exploring IoT for the organisation. So Bobby is going to just take us through a few case studies and examples of how McFarland have been utilising IoT and some of the benefits that they've developed off the back of that. Thanks, Bobby.
Thanks very much. Hi, everyone. So today I'll be just going through a lot of stuff that we do in McFarland's here, we'll see regarding Internet of Things. But first, a little bit of background on McFarland Consulting. So we're a civil and structural engineering consultancy. We were founded in 2000, and we do a lot of things regarding assessing, maintaining, and extending the serviceable life of buildings. Now, that can be done in many different ways, like forensic analysis, finite element analysis, but the main area of time involved in is structural health monitoring, which we've been doing for the past 10 years, I believe. So pretty much just before we get into the whole IoT aspect of it all, I just want to give a quick overview of what structural health monitoring is. Essentially, there's a lot of definitions for it, but I tend to just go with using sensor data to gather information about the state of existing structures. And there's a lot of important reasons why we do this. The first and I think most important aspect of SHM is extending the structural life of a building. So essentially, is an asset could be anything regarding a bridge or a building, a structure, anything like that. So we want to utilize SHM to preserve and pretty much save existing assets. So, for example, a lot of building codes like the British standards or Euro codes or something like that can be quite conservative in their estimates when it comes to sort of the lifespan of a building. And so using sensors within SHM to monitor strain and stuff like that can actually help preserve and actually help find hidden structural strengths within a building to make sure that we actually have, there's actually quite a good bit of structural integrity, and we can actually pinpoint where an area of a building could actually require more maintenance. Just making sure that just pretty much checking any sort of structural flaws as well within real time. So pretty much all in all, you want to be able to preserve and save existing structures just to make sure that a building doesn't need to get nasally demolished or something like that. It can just be extended until it eventually needs major repairs. An area which is we're looking into now actually is predictive analysis. So SHM itself can actually produce serious amounts of data. So if you have like 40 sensors in a building and it's recording something every 5 seconds across all them sensors, you're going to get like thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of data points. And with that, you can get all the historical data, plot on graphs or whatever, and see how it's done. But one thing we can do as well is using things like deep learning, machine learning to actually predict what could happen in the future. So we can actually create models to understand future structural changes. So we can ask ourselves questions like, how does temperature affect the structure? What time of day is the structure most what time of day does the most structural damage occur? And which structure is used the most? And you can gather this information through sensors, which can be used for further tailor-made maintenance and just figuring out trends, like Martin said before, figuring out energy distribution and things like that, and also predicting how long a structure and what kind of strain, stress, and stuff like that could actually occur in the near future. So just a few examples of the sensors that we use within McFarland ourselves. We use a wide variety of them, but the main ones are listed right here in front of you. We have strain, displacement, cracks, and temperature. Now, these all can be used pretty much together as well and consolidate them all within one system. It's important to just see how well a lot of these, how a lot of these sensors like strain, displacement, and cracks compare against temperature, because a lot of structural integrity and structural health could actually change depending on the temperature outside as well. But when it comes to Internet of Things, there's a lot of projects that we've been involved in which have been located in particularly remote locations and places with limited internet coverage. So if that's the case, then we want to have something that's always connected. If we have to manually collect data, that can actually cost a lot of money to the client and ourselves, because going down to the site, fuel cost, engineer on site, and also there's the possibility of having hard to access sensors. So making sure that we have something that's always online, real time, so we can actually get a permanent stream of information, so we can get a good sort of snapshot of data at any given time of the day. So we've looked into a lot of IoT, but I want to go through pretty much just a couple of case studies I've been looking at the past few years, and utilizing emerging technologies as well within IoT. So I think one of our hallmark project is actually Castle Corner Bridge. So Castle Corner itself is, I think it's a 13th century Norman castle that's located in Guernsey, and it happens to be a very large, a very popular tourist site on the island. But the only way to access the castle is from this bridge you see pictured here. And I believe it was refurbished or rebuilt in 1951, and it's pretty much approaching at the end of its lifespan. So when, as I said previously, when it comes to the sort of building codes like British standards and Euro codes, it's at the end of its lifespan, so it's essentially failing. And again, sorry, this a lot of the structural sort of damage can be sort of attributed to the tides again, Guernsey, which is 19 meters. It's very, very strong and high tide. But we've used strain gauges along the bridge just to monitor it and make sure that certain vehicles and certain vehicles can actually pass over the bridge, and just making sure that the bridge is actually still preserved and safe to use. So we're constantly monitoring that. We've been monitoring it for well over 2 years now. And as you know yourself, it's in Guernsey, so we can't actually go there and physically collect any data. So we had to create our own remote monitoring solution. So pretty much through structural health monitoring and FEA. So FEA is pretty much the picture on your right. It's just sort of modeling the bridge itself and just seeing how strain affects the structural integrity of the bridge. And on the picture on the left as well, that's at high tide, and you'll see accessing the sensors requires fairly specialized equipment just to get under and install them, maintain them, that sort of stuff. So we have all of these sensors, but because it's so far away, we had to create our own sort of system, an IoT system. This is pretty much what we sort of high level overview of what we did in Guernsey. So we had 8 sensors, all sending data to a data logger, which is located close by. And anytime a car or a lorry would go over to do some maintenance work or routine maintenance work, there would be it would reach the strain gauges would reach a certain threshold, and it would say, okay, the strain gauge has reached its defined threshold, and then we have a camera set up there, and we'll take a photo of the whole bridge just to see what went over, and that gets sent back to the data logger as well, and then all that information is sent to the cloud on a specialized data storage system through a machine-to-machine SIM card. So MTM SIM cards are used quite frequently in IoT applications as well, because they're more specialized and more robust for and more reliable when it comes to sending data, especially large amounts of data, sensor data. So all that gets sent to the cloud, and then we can access it at any time. And even if there is an alert, so let's say a lorry crosses the bridge, we'll be alerted straight away via email, and they'll send an email and they'll say, okay, this threshold is reached, and here's a picture of what happened. So it's very much an IoT application using existing technology like existing well tried and tested technologies like mobile internet. But the next case study I just want to go through here is the Spring Hill displacement monitoring, which we done earlier last year. So it was a fairly straightforward SHM application. It was literally just monitoring the movement of timber beams in the basement in Spring Hill over a period of a few months. And all we needed was 2 displacement sensors and a temperature sensor, just to monitor movement of the beams and see how it compares with temperature and that sort of stuff. But the caveat was there was no Wi-Fi connectivity, there was no Ethernet, we weren't allowed on the internet, and there was clothes in the basement as well, and it's in a fairly remote part of Mid-Ulster. There was no real mobile phone coverage, so all we had to do was look at over emerging IoT technologies. Now, the reason for this is going down there every week or whatever to manually collect the data just wouldn't make economic sense in terms for ourselves and the client. So having an online system so we can always monitor what's going on was very, very crucial. So there's different types of emerging technologies that are being used, particularly with in IoT. LoRa, Sigfox, Narrowband sort of IoT. All of these are they're proprietary, but they all have different uses, and they all have different uses, and just some can't really handle the amount of data that's being sent. So what we decided was using LoRa, which literally just stands for long range. So it's a networking technology that's came about, and pretty much it the way it works is each device or thing or node, as it's called, is sent to a gateway. That gateway is connected to the internet, and usually via a mobile SIM, and then that relays data to whatever cloud platform that that gateway is connected to. So it has a range of around 20 kilometers, although the world record is 832, but that was using things like weather balloons, so they're at a very, very high altitude. But up to 20 kilometers realistically. But I have done tests myself, and I've managed to get connected to LoRa gateways maybe 30, 40 kilometers away here in Belfast. But one of the wonderful things about this is that every country kind of has to set up their own network. So when it comes to Northern Ireland, the entire country is practically covered with LoRa, and it's pretty much due to the actions of just government initiatives and academic institutions. I think it was Ulster University installing all these gateways across the country. And another thing as well is you can actually set up your own as well if you wanted. So if you had an outdoor gateway, you could set that up yourself, and the way it works is any sort of node you could connect to that gateway, encrypt the data, and send it off to whatever cloud platform that's been assigned to. So what we did then with that was pretty much we had this displacement sensor and a temperature sensor sending data via Ethernet sort of cable to a Raspberry Pi with a LoRaWAN connected node. That node then gets sent to the gateway, which is around 15 kilometers away. And then the cloud itself, where the gateway sends data to, was using this sort of community-based API called the Things Network. And the Things Network, pretty much, it's run by it is run by a group of people, but like a lot of it is very community focused. So a lot of changes are sort of done by the public, and you can set up your own sort of gateways, as I said previously. And all that data is getting stored up and sent up to the Things Network, which we can then access ourselves and just graph and map out any information we have there. So pretty much using emerging technologies like LoRa has really helped ourselves and McFarland's using emerging IoT technologies, because all of these technologies are pretty much coming up quite frequently now. And now that we've used something like LoRa, it showcases that we can actually monitor information remotely, even if there's no mobile phone coverage, if it's in Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK, as LoRa network's quite well thought out. There are other systems as well you could use, like Sigfox, which pretty much operates in the same way as LoRa, but it's more proprietary, but then it's more expensive. Whereas with our solution, what we did with LoRaWAN, you don't have to really pay much. You only just have to pay for a node, and the gateway is already set up. So you can send that data up to the gateway. And when it comes to security, you can encrypt that data being sent up from the node. So from a security and financial standpoint, it's actually quite sound. So that's something that we've been working on. And now that we have that sort of knowledge, that technology from LoRaWAN, we can now pretty much deploy that in a lot of different areas as well. So so pretty much I wanted to go through just what the future is when it comes to sort of connected devices within like this sort of smart infrastructure and smart cities. So I just want to go through smart cities and how ourselves could fit into that, as well as just in general what the future looks like when it comes to the Internet of Things. So when it comes to smart cities, there's no real defined definition for it, but pretty much it's using sensors and emerging technology to collect data to solve city problems. Now, there's any number of city problems within a city that need solving. So, as Martin said before, things like waste management and sort of waste management, like, you know, a bin's not full or a bin is full, and it just sends information out to whoever would collect it, so it saves them money. And then looking at things like traffic control and energy distribution, just to make sure that the city is actually running at a sort of efficient level. So energy is being, you know, distributed to an area where there's a high amount of people, or when it comes to traffic, having smart traffic lights and stuff like that, just to ease congestion, which can actually eventually promote green sustainability. And then when it comes to ourselves, like with structural health, that can be implemented within a sort of smart city framework as well, because if, as I said previously, regarding predictive analysis, we could have a lot of information regarding buildings, be it temperature, strain, and stuff like that, and just seeing how well building is actually performing under high load or high stress. If there's loads of people in one building, if there's loads of people in one building, then pretty much resources can be allocated to that one area of building, for example, maintenance or, you know, stock supplies and energy. And just a couple of statistics regarding how smart cities are already changing things. It's pretty much when it comes to like smart traffic lights and stuff like that, you can see in Midtown New York, it's reduced traffic by 10%. And for a place in New York, I think every little helps pretty much when there's so much. That's a city where traffic congestion is a major problem. And within Manchester, within the Smart Cities, I think it was a European funded research program. It was pretty much looking at things like assessing energy consumption, storage, and rerouting like different renewable energy sources to different parts of the city. And they found out that if that was scaled citywide, they'd be able to save 57 tons worth of CO2 emissions per year. So stuff like that really can have a real environmental impact, especially when there's climate change is actually such a major issue. And I remember seeing a lot of times a big concern a lot of people would have with IoT as well is security. There are a lot of devices out there which may not have the most robust security systems on it, like when it comes to store-bought stuff for your home. But when it comes to large-scale connected buildings and crucial data, we can be quite thankful how in Belfast, where there is a growing smart cities program, we can also combine that with the fact that Belfast is now a pretty large cybersecurity hub. I think it was like 1,200 jobs created for US firms coming into Belfast with, I think 1,200 jobs, I think it's jobs coming in for cybersecurity. So if we can combine that with local smart city programs, smart city infrastructure, we can be thankful that we have quite a lot of cybersecurity knowledge here in Belfast. And the fact is, it's worth so much money as well. It's like it's worth $34 billion annually. So there is a major economic factor there. It can drive economic growth quite considerably. And just to go back to the sort of environmental aspect, worldwide, if we can manage to have a properly maintained energy distribution system, we'd be able to actually improve energy efficiency by 30% within 20 years, and that's an astounding figure considering how much energy is being used and how much is being wasted when certain areas may not be properly, utilized, or may not be maybe very quiet, and so you just have to sort of distribute energy efficiently to the point where we're saving costs and saving energy. So I think smart cities, smart infrastructure, and just making sure how we can connect everything in a efficient manner can actually change things for the better in the future. So I think that is myself. I don't know if I'm going over time here, but I'd like to thank everybody for listening. And yeah, so if you have any questions, just shoot them my way. I think my email's been miniaturized when we combine these PowerPoints, but I'll put my email in the chat if anyone wants to chat. Shoot me a question as well about SHM or IoT, how we could do things or within IoT. So thanks very much.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Bobby. That's really interesting to see everything that McFarland have been involved in over the last while, and you can just see so many different uses for connected and IoT devices, and monitoring things like bridges and structures. It's it really helped bring it to life, and discussing smart cities as well is really relevant given the Belfast City Region deal and the money coming through on it, and that's caused a big focus on smart cities and how we can do things a bit better and more efficiently, and share the savings along the way. So thank you very much. I suppose we're going to do, if Martin is still there as well, there's just been a few questions coming along the way. If we could maybe cover a few. So there was Bobby, you did actually touch on it when you were talking there about the security of sensors. So in terms of what are the perceived risks to business using IoT, and what are the sort of security and safety risks when things go wrong. So I suppose it's, how safe are IoT sensors, or what mitigations do you need to put in place around some of the sensors if they're potentially vulnerable to hacks, etc. Oh, Martin, I think you might be on mute. It's the quote of 2020, 2021.
Yeah, so with security stuff there, it comes down to one thing, is keeping your devices up to date there, and also buying devices that have a long shelf life. So it's like your phone. Like iPhones, they last maybe 2 years, to 5 years, and then after a while, the software updates stop coming for them because Apple says it's too old and stuff. So it's about keeping with any type of software, it's really about keeping your versions or your operating system or the application on it up to date, because they're getting all the security features there. So I'd always kind of check, what's the, do they get security features for the next 5 years? Okay, I'll buy this device then as part of my IoT kind of setup. So you really have to look into that. But it's about that so people can't hack into them and tamper with them there. So it's also about having just the correct security measurements in place. So with businesses, well, like they're going to be attacked a lot more. We see this even through COVID. There was a lot more attacks last year just when COVID hit, because a lot of hackers thought people were out of the office, they're easier to hack into places as well. So you have to have the correct security protocols in place, and that's where we're going with the world in the next at the moment and in the next few years. Security's got to be part of your company. You've got to have certain policies in place. If anything happens, what is going to be the outcome? What's going to be the procedure? Just like if you think about it, fire safety in our companies it's the normal now. Maybe 60 years ago, it was kind of like, how do they do it? I think that's where it's going to come in as well. But keeping your software up to date is the main thing, I think.
Okay. Another question we have is, how does IoT differ from SCADA systems?
SCADA systems, I'm not an expert in SCADA systems, but I find them as a closed loop kind of system, meaning it's not the easiest to integrate with another system there. That's one thing I found even with Intel there. We were trying to get like say Apple products working with Android products, and we need a kind of what we call the gateway. Do you know, like your home router is like a gateway, that one place they can all talk to and it can send up information. And there, I just find SCADA is not that kind of like anybody can just jump in and, you know, add to SCADA there. That's one thing. SCADA and IoT can work together there, but it's not as easy to do that as well. Like also, I think SCADA's, again, I'm not an expert in this, but IoT is about like serious data retention over like, you know, 10 years, you know, about collecting as much data as you can. I've just seen SCADA systems maybe didn't collect as much data as like that to develop trends where, and that kind of openness as well, because IoT stuff is very, very open. So other kind of like, you know, I can get data off an IoT device. As long as I get the data off it, I can use it in any system. I can use it in Azure Power BI. I can use it in Amazon. With SCADA, I think it's a lot harder to get that kind of data off. Again, I'm not an expert on it. And also with SCADA or with IoT, the protocols that are used to transfer data are very open there. The SCADA protocols are not as open. They're more proprietary as well. So.
Brilliant, thank you. And then probably just one of the last, bit of a two-part question, but first part, suggestions on equipment to create an IoT setup at home. So I suppose, is there anything really cool or new that you've seen that, you know, you would have probably buy yourself?
Well, pretty much when it comes to IoT things at home, there's two different ways you can sort of go down. You can create your own from the ground up, pretty much using things like the Raspberry Pi or Arduino. And you can get like off-the-shelf sensors like temperature sensors and even electricity monitor sensors as well. And what you can do then is you can install software, which I believe there's an open source software called Smart Home, and it pretty much does a lot of it for you. And when it comes to things like Raspberry Pi and stuff like that, you can actually learn how to wire up a few things yourself. But when you have things like Smart Home, you have the framework there, and you can use that to create your own sort of smart home system. And then another thing you can do as well is the more established companies as well would have their own sort of system. I believe Samsung have quite a big IoT smart home system as well they've developed. But when it comes to that sort of aspect, which is plug and play, it would, I think it costs a lot more than just using more open source things like Raspberry Pi and Arduino. So, yeah, so you just have to look at different sort of ones out there.
Brilliant. Thanks, Bobby. And then probably the last question. What are the main programs or programming languages that are used when working in the IoT space? Is there any sort of major players or mainstream sort of languages used? Yeah,
within the sensor, like within the IoT kind of sensors and embedded sensors, mostly like C and C++, because again, with those programming languages, you want to have the smallest amount of code footprint in there. Like Java and all those, they'd be too large for any embedded devices, so it's kind of C and C++. So when you send it up to the cloud, though, you can use any language you want there. That's, you know, do the data analytics, do your over-the-air updates to update your embedded software, how to manage your device. You can do it in any language then. Like so, there's one platform I've used a lot is Mbed. That's part of the ARM group. Their ARM, we have them in a lot of our devices there, so they provide that platform.
Brilliant, happy days. I think that concludes majority of the questions. So thank you.
Well, there's one there I see, David. There is like an experience in construction at the end.
Oh yeah, so yeah, someone's just asking their interest in whether or not anyone has any experience of IoT within construction, farmyard plants, heavy duty mobile plants. So Martin, over to you.
Not directly there, but I know that I was in the St. George's Market there about 2 years ago with the NI Chamber of Commerce, and they had stalls there, and business could be there showing their equipment. Now Fujitsu were there, so Fujitsu were on the Newtonards Road there, just off there, and they had a stall there where they were showing all their actual construction IoT sensor equipment. What I'll do is I'll put it into the link here to the kind of stuff they had there. Now they were quite, just put it in there into the chat. Yeah, so there's some people you could talk to as well, but I see that as well as a health and safety kind of thing in the future. More IoT would come into that. I was even talking to a company before that, do you know, when you go on site to be compliant with all the health and safety regulations, you had to do all these courses, and what they were looking at doing was doing facial recognition, so it could tell if you should be on site or not there, and it could tell then who was compliant and who wasn't as they were coming on site. And then if they weren't compliant, then they had to do those courses again. That's saving the construction company a lot on if any accidents happen, that they have the proper insurance. So I think I put that in there.
Yeah, brilliant.
I think another thing within construction as well, a lot of stuff within construction, civil engineering, it's still quite traditional when it comes to the actual building of buildings, and it's only really now the past couple of years where people have started looking into embedding sensors within concrete and on steel frames, and actually just monitoring like just sort of the temperature and moisture content of concrete and stuff like that. But one thing that we're seeing now within structural health modeling is what we're involved in. We're now seeing a few buildings and structures being developed where they're actually installing structural health monitoring sensors along the actual during the construction phase. So I think a huge example of that is actually it's one of the bridges. There's a major bridge going across the main river in Hong Kong, and what they did was they pretty much embedded a lot of sensors within the attached sensors along the entire bridge, and they ended up getting millions of data points just checking the vibration and the strain and the temperature of the actual structure itself. So it's now only coming to fruition where they're actually starting to install gauges and sensors within like parallel to the actual construction phase. So it's still very new, I think.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Martin and Bobby, for filling those questions and giving some insight to some of our attendees today. I just wanted to quickly finish it off by, I suppose, giving you an overview of some of the business support that's available to companies and social enterprises across Northern Ireland. So, as I said at the top of the webinar, I work for the Centre for Economic Development and Social Inclusion team, and we're able to deliver a range of skills, innovation, and training programs that are either fully or part funded, and really help you grow as a business, explore new technologies, and potentially deliver some and develop some new services and products. So in terms of the suite of programs available, the Connected program, which has funded this webinar today, gives the college and university networks the capacity and the funding to work together to solve business issues, provide some solutions, and really share the academic knowledge and experience. What that also manifests itself in is we can help with some exploratory work. If, for example, IoT, Internet of Things, is something you think might help your business or solve an issue you have, we can potentially line you up with support from an academic to explore that and see if IoT actually is the solution for your issue, or potentially another area of technology. So it's really to help you explore an area of technology or a new process or product or platform to see if it will help you with your plans. In terms of training, we have the Innovate Us program. So that really gives you one-to-one technical support and training, potentially up to a period of 60 hours, to really transfer that knowledge to you to go and work on a particular platform, technology area, whether that's data analytics, virtual reality, anything through to machine learning, blockchain, IoT, software development, and right through to more hands-on areas such as 3D printing, fashion, textiles, whatever it might be. As long as there's an innovation angle to it, we can develop a bespoke training plan to give you the skills to go and develop a new product or service yourself. If taking that on yourself isn't the way you're going, or if you don't quite have the capital yet, one area you could look at is the Invest Now Innovation Voucher Scheme, which has 4 calls for applications per year and essentially gives you a £5,000 digital check. So unfortunately you don't get £5,000 yourself, but you can then go and spend £5,000 of Invest Now's money essentially with a knowledge provider. So any one of the college or university network in Northern Ireland. And what that really means in reality is it gives the college or university the ability to go and develop a prototype or proof of concept product or service or platform on your behalf to really demonstrate that your idea will work in reality. So no matter what your idea is, if it solves a business issue or problem, Innovation Voucher can essentially give you a tangible working demo or prototype in your hands to go and show to potential clients, investors, or really take forward yourself in your development of your product or service. And then lastly, but not least, Skills Focus is a program that helps you as an SME company or social enterprise with under 250 staff, help grow your people through a range of different qualifications and certifications. The program is fully funded, so we would have a range of qualifications in the likes of Cisco Cybersecurity Essentials, a range of Microsoft qualifications, whether that's software development, database fundamentals, right through to networking and infrastructure. But also outside of the IT space, a wide range of qualifications in Institute of Leadership and Management, construction, engineering, fashion, and some of those more business-focused qualifications. So again, if that's something you are interested in, please do get in touch with us. You can see our email address on the screen, sedc@belfastmet.ac.uk. And then last but not least, just a bit of a plug for our next webinar, which comes on Monday. So we do have a webinar exploring how to start a business podcast. So if podcasting is something you're thinking about getting into, we have a range of guest speakers, including Peter Corey Productions, who are going to discuss how they got their business podcast off the ground. And they'll also be joined by some lecturers from the college who work in that audio and scripting space to really help you see what is possible, I suppose, from home at the minute to develop your own podcast and get your message out there. So if that's something of interest, please do go to sedc.eventbrite.com. So that's coming up on Monday. We also do have further webinars later in the month that explore new product development, design thinking, and then also looking at the fashion and textiles industry and what is happening in that space. That really just leaves me to say thank you to Martin and Bobby again for taking us through the world of IoT. I know it was a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but again, thank you to Martin and Bobby. If IoT is something you want to explore further, please do get in touch. And it just leaves me to say thanks so much and enjoy your afternoon. Cheers.
One quick thing there, David, just that we helped the amount of people we've helped with innovation vouchers there with IoT, developing like their kind of maybe sensor with them and then developing a cloud platform to kind of show how they're going as a proof of concept there. There's a lot of companies who help there, but also the connected thing I think is really good about, if you're thinking, you're a business, you're thinking about it, how you're not an expert in the whole field, can you get a few hours of my time or somebody else's time to go out and really find it out and go, here, this is the answer. Saves a lot of businesses time then,
Yeah, because I suppose IoT might not be the answer. It might be, but it actually might not be, and it might be something else. So that's what Connected is perfect for, is to really help you explore if something or your idea is a good fit for a particular technology and vice versa. So I suppose potentially before you delve in and spend a lot of time or money in a particular area, you could really sort of thrash that out before delving deeper into it. Yeah, thanks very much, everyone, and thank you for your questions as well. It was great to see the chat so busy. So hopefully see you all on Monday on the podcasting webinar. Cheers, bye.
Thanks very much.